Orientation. So orientation is either going to be normal or inverted, and it depends on the sign of b. So we have the graphs in the form of y equals a plus b sine of cx, or y equals a plus b cos of cx. So we're interested in the b that's stuck on in front of either the sine or the cos. So this is the rule. If b is positive, then the graph is normal, i.e. it is orientated the same as the standard sine and cosine graphs. If b is negative, however, then the curve is inverted, which means we turn it upside down or we put it upside down. And it's inverted about the midway line. So this is the transformation. If b is negative, then the standard sine or cosine curve is reflected in the midway line. So the graph shows both the standard curve y equals sine of x and its reflection in its midway line, which in this case happens to be the x-axis, and the graph is y equals minus sine of x. So the orange dotted line is our usual graph of y equals sine of x, and the purple line is the graph of y equals minus sine of x. So it's the reflection of the graph y equals sine of x in its midway line, and the midway line is the x-axis. So our green curve is the graph of y equals cos of x, and the red curve is the graph of y equals minus cos of x. So it's been reflected in its midway line, which happens to be the x-axis. So it's been inverted or flipped upside down. And then underneath, our green graph is the graph of y equals sine of x, and the red graph is the graph of y equals minus sine of x, which has been reflected in its midway line, which is the x-axis. So our green curve here is the graph of y equals 2 plus sine of x, and the red curve is the graph of y equals 2 minus sine of x. So it's the sine of x graph, but the midway line is 2, because the number in front is 2, so the midway line is going to be 2. And the red graph is a reflection of the green graph in its midway line, which is y equals 2. So it's very important to note that a graph is not always reflected in the x-axis. It is reflected in the midway line. And here our green graph is the graph of y equals minus 3 plus cos of x. And we see the midway line is minus 3 because we have a minus 3 in front. And the red graph is the curve of y equals minus 3 minus cos of x. So it is the green curve, but it's been reflected in the midway line, which is y equals minus 3.